So have you ever been told that you intimidate others? Being told you're intimidating can actually be a good thing. You just have to own it. And here's my story of how here's a story of how I've owned that word. So intimidation, that word has actually haunted me my whole life. It started out in grade school when a friend of mine tells me that her friend finds me intimidating. And I think it wasn't even the word intimidating. I think at that time it was more like, you're scary. She said her friend told her that my eyes looked like a crow's eyes, and it scared the shit out of her whenever we talked because I would stare right into her eyes. Maintaining eye contact, right? Like conversation skills, but I guess I did it too much. But then I take the context, right? Like I think when I was in grade school, having grown up with mostly Caucasian kids, I just kind of assumed, I made this assumption that maybe she's just not as exposed to folks who have such dark colored eyes. And so I just kind of brushed it off and didn't think much about it after that. But then in high school, as girls in high school, when your hormones are all like that teenage years of like, oh, does he like me? Does he like me? Or like, oh my God, I like him. He doesn't like me. Or does he, whatever, right? So my friend and I were talking about boys, and I was saying like, no one's asked me out, like what's going on, and this idea, which I'm hoping it will change, this idea that boys have to ask out girls, which is bullshit. I've actually asked out many dudes before. Anyway, side story. We were talking, we're like, why, how come, none of the boys are asking me out? And she's like, I think it's because they find you intimidating. And I was like, when she said that, I was like, you're ridiculous. Like, how could they find me, like this 5-foot small Asian girl who's like quiet and no one really noticed, at least in my head, no one really noticed. And like went to school and then just kind of came to class, went to school, came home, did her homework kind of thing. Like, how could I be intimidating? Anyway, so then I was like, whatever. But then it was in my later years, when an ex-boyfriend of mine, after we had broken up, he made a comment. He was just like, you know what, whoever ends up with you is going to have to get over the fact that they're intimidated by you. And I was like, and I kind of like, I guess we had just broken up. So I was like, you know what, you're being spiteful, and, the wounds are still fresh for both of us. And, like things are being said that we don't really mean. So that's fine. So I kind of just, again, like just took that and wanted to not think about it. And then recently, so my own husband, this is the man that I ended up marrying for like how many years, and we have 2 children together. So he obviously knows me inside out, see me give birth and everything, right? We were talking about, so he heard someone say something about me, right? Like, and I was like, well, do you think they would ever come up to me directly and just tell me that? And then he's like, I doubt it. People find you intimidating. And I was like, what? Right? Like, I thought this whole thing was like it was just complete denial of my intimidation for years, because really intimidation for a long time in my belief system, it had negative connotations, and it's not a good thing. People are scared of you, right? I wanted to be perceived for my whole life. I wanted to be perceived as warm, welcoming, friendly, bubbly, easy to approach, friendly, and where everything's a question and it's okay to talk to me, and, just come, isn't that how society expects women to act if they want to be liked? Because we want to be liked, right? All women need to put up a front because that's all they desire, right? Is for people to like them. And I'm not going to go down that RBF route, right? Like, there's an entire video and blog post and podcast on that whole thing. Anyway, so, and I believe that if I'm considered intimidating, like if people thought I was intimidating, then they're going to think I'm a cold bitch and who's snotty and judgy and, viewing others like they're beneath me. But it's not at all who I am, like at all. And so this past month, I would say, I've been reflecting on that word, intimidation. And I was like, you know what, let's get to the bottom of this. Let's get to the bottom of whether, there's got to be some truth to it. So I did my Google search and just started looking up about like signs you're intimidating, right? Like all these like blogs and articles started popping up. Because I knew like there's got to be some element of truth to the matter. So then after doing my little Google search, I found out like it really helped me remove a lot of the self-hate around the word. So how come all these people were telling me that I am intimidating? Like from people who love me, people who don't love me, people who don't love me anymore, people who know me inside and out, people who barely know me. They've all told me, like, so there's got to be an element of truth to the words. When was I interpreting the word completely wrong? And through this kind of self-discovery exercise I did with myself, just Googling and thinking and reflecting on myself, it was yes, I want to believe that I was interpreting the word wrong for most of my life. And I want to flip it, change my mindset to view intimidation as a positive characteristic, as a positive trait. And so I'm going to consciously make a decision to own that word, and I'm going to embrace who I am and remove all sorts of self-hate around it, because those who see me for who I really am will really know what I'm about. So here are kind of like, after I did my Google search, I found out 10 kind of like reasons why this word resonates with me. And because like when you go signs of you're intimidating, you kind of like, you go through it and you're kind of like, yeah, or not really. And so here are the 10 things that I resonate with that I found. So people might find me intimidating because, number one, I do the things I say I'll do. And when I don't, I'll admit it willingly. Like I'll just be like, so sorry, I didn't get to do this thing that I said I would do. But it also makes me not give a lot of promises I can't keep, because a huge pet peeve of mine are empty promises. I hate it when people tell me they're going to do something and then don't actually do it. And then when they don't actually do it, they like hide and they're like, oh, like I hopefully he doesn't remember. And so I say no to a lot of things because like I have boundaries, and honestly I don't have a lot of time. I'm up to working, all these things, right? Like I want to ensure that I keep doing what I'm doing. I have a lot of competing priorities. And I know what my priorities are, which is myself, my husband, my kids, my family above all else. And I want to make sure that when I say I'm going to do something, I'm actually really going to do it. And also be able to prioritize my time effectively so that I will do whatever thing I'm going to say I'm going to do. And I'm a person who's really hard on myself. Like I'm a recovering perfectionist. So when I don't do something that I say I was going to do, like, and I can't meet those demands, I will absolutely tell you that, and I'll own up to it and just feel completely bad about whatever I promised you. Anyway, so that was one of the signs, and I was like, yeah, I do that. That can intimidate people because maybe a lot of people aren't like that. Number two, I say what I mean what I say. So I'm not like, I don't like to boast or exaggerate or decorate my life as though I just tell it like it is. I'm a realistic person. Like if you see me on Instagram and I'm posting pictures of myself in my workout gear, I didn't just like wake up, put the workout gear on, take a picture, and then take them off. Right? I actually probably did a real sweaty, gross workout. And then I'm not going to tell you to exercise if I haven't done that myself. Like I wrote books about dating and marriage, relationships, how to deal with your Asian parents, because I've personally gone through a journey and currently still going on in a journey of improving those things, and sharing those life lessons and sharing my insights and stories is true to me. And with advice, like I don't give advice unless I'm being asked. I don't just start doling out unsolicited advice like an Asian parent, be like, oh, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this. Like, and if I do want to ask, like someone asks me for my advice, it's something that I followed myself or firmly believe in. So number three, I'm very open-minded, okay? And because I'm so open-minded, I ask a lot of questions, and it can come across as interrogating. Like why, what, where, what, how, and Like, it's because opinions without substance really aggravate me. Like, share with me your most unconventional, most like wild thoughts. And then I'll ask you why 5 times. Not because I think you're wrong or because I want to convince you my thoughts. It's because I want to understand how you came to that conclusion, right? You could say to me, like, all Chinese people are cheap. Okay, why? Why? Give me your context, give me your experience, give me your story, give me your research, your data, or whatever. Like, the news article that you saw. And like, I've also accepted the fact that it's impossible, absolutely impossible for everyone to agree with me. But I really love understanding their viewpoints and where they came from, their context, and their lens, like kind of their perspective on the matter. But like, if all they can give me, and this is a huge pet peeve, another thing that aggravates me is, well, I'm entitled to my opinion. Like, Chinese people are cheap. Why? I don't know. I'm entitled to my opinion. Then it's like, okay, like, I'll empathize with your lack of self-awareness, or limited self-awareness. I'm going to say lack. And then it's like, I'm going to give you time and space, and then just kind of move on. And that could intimidate people, because a lot of people don't have that ability, or aren't comfortable with asking themselves why 5, 10, 15 times when they have a very strong opinion about something. And the thing is, I'm completely okay with strong opinions. I love hearing someone say something very, like, just that rubs you the wrong way, and then they go into their layers of justification, right? Like, the government's gonna kill everyone. Okay, why? Well, they have this plan that I saw, and like, I'm gonna be like stocking up on gold, and it's like, it just goes into that depth of their rabbit hole, and I love going through that. It's not like I agree with it. It doesn't mean that I am completely on board and I'm going to start stocking up on gold and hating the government and going off grid, right? It just gives me an opportunity to understand their story. I love stories. Okay, number 4, I'm a high achiever. Since a young age, always wanted to do everything well. As I said, recovering perfectionist. And so I've got things to do. I got goals to reach, dreams to achieve and accomplish, the things I didn't want to do. And like, for my whole life, I've always had a mission, like with little detours here and there, but still the same path. And this is another thing that scares people. It's like, I know what I want in life in every aspect. From love to career to health to my relationships, that can scare a lot of people, and it can make people feel really intimidated by you. Because knowing what you want is really half the battle, because it's like, not a lot of people know what they want. Because the next thing, it's like, the knowing what you want is you're already half done. Next is like, well, how do I do it? And actually doing it, right? The next hardest part is how is like the little bit, right? You can just Google how to do something. Then actually do it is the next kind of hump that you have to get through. And every day I work on my dream. I dream just a little bit so that I can live off doing what I'm doing, writing about the nuances of my life, sharing with people who care about my story. Writing books and selling my books and having them share with me their stories and how my stories have affected them or their own stories. And I love visualizing myself and where I'm going to be in 5, 10, 15, 30 plus years. Like, I often, like, I'm a very vivid person. I have a very vivid imagination. And I like to have real mental pictures of my future. Like, from talking to my son, like, he's like 8 months old right now, talking to my son about consent and safe sex. I literally visualize that conversation. Or walking my daughter down the aisle when she gets married or commits to someone. Watching my grandchild be born and becoming a grandmother, and then holding my grandchild for the first time. Becoming a mother-in-law, right? And then the moment when my husband and I are become empty nesters, and there was no kids in the house, and we're just sitting together for the first time for dinner, just me and him. Visualizing myself speaking at international conferences, talking about my story and sharing my vision and mission to empower individuals to talk about their feelings despite growing up in a culture that hid them. Getting an email from a like crazy publisher saying like we want to give you a crazy lucrative book deal. To seeing my parents hold their great grandchild. That's very far-fetched, but I like to visualize those things. Or sitting on the porch with a nice glass of Diet Coke, cold glass of Diet Coke, no ice, just watching my grandchildren play in my yard and getting ready to like join them because I've had taken care of my body through decades of yoga and working out and preventing any sort of injury. I can just get in there, run in there like as a 70 or 65-year-old and get down and dirty and start going, crazy with my grandkids. And, or just an old lady, like as an old little Asian lady reminiscing about this time when I did this video and just thinking about it and thinking about what actually came true and what didn't. And I have hopes and dreams, and I love sharing these, even though I know they may not come true. And it's okay. Like, I'm okay if those things don't come true. And it's like, people are afraid of having to eat their words, right? They'll say, they don't want to say what their real hopes and dreams are because they have a fear of insecurity, right? They're insecure that they're not going to be able to tell you that they did what they say they're going to do. So because they value their integrity. So it's instead to just kind of keep a lot of those things hidden until it actually happens. Then you can kind of tell people. But for me, if my kids decide not to have children, or if they decide to not get married and I don't get those moments, it's not gonna, then I believe in myself, my own emotional resiliency to be able to adjust, right? To be able to adapt and find new hopes and dreams to focus on. So number 5, I listen way more than I talk when I'm in groups. Like when I'm in my groups, I'm super quiet. I'm aloof. I stare, right? Like I look at people in the eyes. So obviously that girl was right. My eyes are maybe scared people. Being like a crow. What I'm really doing is I'm observing and processing, and I'm an introvert, but I'm not shy, right? Like I'm not a shy person. But being quiet can come across as timid. But it just really means, for me, when I'm quiet, it means I'm digesting what you're saying. And it doesn't mean that I'm secretly judging you and saying, oh my God, this person's an idiot. And what I'm doing is really just taking that time to interpret your words inside my head, like what it means to me, and then also thinking of questions I want to ask you, so that I can understand you more. And really, like ultimately, what I'm really trying to do is to interpret your words in a way that to find out what it means to me. And sometimes when you're doing that and you're so quiet and aloof, it takes a really long time. And I don't say anything for a very long time. And for someone who's watching that, especially for someone who doesn't know me, watching that might be like, what's wrong with this person, right? Like it makes me be like, why are you so cold and standoffish? But I think people who know me, like if they're curious enough to know what I'm thinking, they'll ask me. So number 6, I seek validation for my depth, not my surface level attributes. So like things like status, title, power, being admired for your luxurious lifestyle, my physical appearance, like whenever, like just things that they can see on the outside, or the things that they perceive of me, without actually getting to know me. It really means little. Like it doesn't mean a lot. But like, the thing is, if they delve deeper, if they saw something they like, right? Saw something like almost like a good, anyway, see something that they admire, but they also have a deeper desire to understand me, and then they validate my efforts of how I got to that point. Then it's like yeah, you know, like I feel so good about it. Like, it's like at the end of the day, like we all want, like for me, I seek validation. I like to be known. I like to know that I'm doing a good job. And it's hard for people to ask for validation too sometimes, because it's like, well, I shouldn't have to ask someone to compliment me or someone to say that I'm doing a good job. They should just say it. But rather, no, like I do like it when people compliment me. But it's for those things that they've gone deeper with me with, like, you know what I mean? Like if they've gone like, they're like, oh my God, you do this. How do you do it? Like, why do you, like, you know, and they ask me all these questions, and I start like, oh, well, this is what I do. And then they're like, damn, you're good. Then I'm like, yeah, you know? But if they just go like, you know, they just tell me like, I don't know, just something really surfacey, and it's just like, okay, great. Do you want to know more? No, I'm good. Number 7, I don't enjoy small talk. So I didn't hire another blog post about small talk, and like I just don't take pleasure in talking about, you know, the weather, sports, news, you know, the condos that they're building down the street. I'm not a big fan of politics. I hate politics. After like how many years working in the government, like politics are just not my thing. But like instead what do I want to know? I want to get to know people, you know what I mean? And I want to have meaningful interactions with people. I want to understand like the human experience through their eyes. And I want to hear their life stories and their history of how they came to be where they are, and where they came from and where they want to go, you know what I mean? And like I want to, in their past, like I want to know the decisions they've made, things that didn't work out, things that did work out, and then also like any sort of decisions they're contemplating now, and like how they've weighed it, you know, and then like whatever they're passionate about or whatever they're working on in their field of work, how did they get into that industry, and why did they decide to get into that industry, and like do they love or hate their job, and why? You know, I want to know their childhood. I want to know how they grew up, where they grew up, what happened, what were some like significant moments that shaped them who they are today. You know, like how have they changed from being a child to now? What are the major influences? Were they who? Were they what? Were they like a series of things that happened? You know, and you know, where do they live? Like I would love to know like why they decide to live where they are. And if they could live anywhere in the world, where would they live? But you know, why haven't they made the move? You know, I want to know people's bucket list, their hopes and dreams, those things that people are scared of sharing because they are scared of having to eat their words, having to backpedal, right? Oh no, I didn't, you know, like it's, you know, like I want to know people's past successes and failures and what they learned from everything, you know, like those are the conversations I want to have. And then obviously when you want to know those things, you can come off as intimidating. So number 8, I am not scared to try new things. I have this rule of like with food, I have this rule where I'll try anything twice. You know, like from deep fried sheep spring in Cairo, which I probably won't try again, to horse sashimi. I'll try anything twice. Like, I mean, sheep's brain I'll try again. Then I haven't only tried it once, and horse sashimi I only tried once. I think I had like some sort of this Chinese dish where they have worms in the eggs. Oh no, so it's like regular eggs, but they put like worms in there, and then they like steam it, something like a steamed egg pie with worms in it. Anyway, I've had that once, and I was like, yeah, it's not bad. Anyway, climbing a mountain, learning to roller skate, recording a video of myself, sharing with you my hopes and dreams and what I'm about. You know, sharing a video about my past eating disorder, writing about my failures, shit that's happened to me. You know, having a kid, killing a fly in the house. You know, some people are killing a spider. Have you ever killed a spider in your house? Or do you let them go? Like, I don't use the vacuum. I just, like, one time, the other day, actually, a big-ass ant, like, probably, like, about this big, came into our house. We live right beside a forest, like, Green Belt. And an ant this big crawled into our house, into the carpet. And my husband's like, oh, my God, it's an ant. And he's the one who likes to vacuum, whereas I'm just, like, I'll grab a paper towel or whatever and just, like, pick it up and throw it away. Like, I had no access. It was crawling super fast on the carpet, and I was like, I don't have paper with me, there's nothing. So I did what my dad did, which is use my bare fingers, picked up the ant, walked to the bathroom, and then dropped the baby off. So So that was like the last scary thing I did. I never done that before. I never picked up a raw like an insect with my hands, but did it. Anyway, so to putting yourself out there on social media, right, for the public to see and criticize and mock, to going on television. Just recently, last week, I was on Fairchild TV talking about my journey as a Chinese Canadian and, my thoughts on the current racism that's happened because of COVID. Those are some like real deep, entangled thoughts that I have that I've grew up with, and sharing that with the entire Chinese community is not, it's not something that's easy for people. Presenting in front of a group, having another kid, like I'll do anything. Not do anything, but I'll try anything twice. And like with most things, like I was teaching my daughter about fear, right? Like about being scared about things, because as a kid, you're scared of a lot of things because you've never done it before. And the first time you do anything will always be hard. But once I've done it once, the second time is where you determine whether you like it or not. And, and if I like it, if it's something that I see I want to keep trying, I'll keep trying it. And, like in life, like I think there's just so many things I want to experience. And I know it will scare the shit out of me. But I know like once I overcome that fear, whatever scares me next, it'll be just a little bit less scary. So I was teaching my daughter about, doing things that you've never done before. Like riding her bike. Like she started learning how to ride a bike, and like we couldn't even get her on there. And then now she's like doing loops and stuff like that. So it's like just think of it like every experience you have, the first time is always going to be the hardest and most scary and daunting. But then once you get kind of over that bit, it's not as hard as it seems. Like the monsters aren't actually under your bed. Anyway, so that's kind of my belief, and that could be considered intimidating. 9, I like to solve problems. I like to tackle things, right? Tackle challenges. When problem arises, I'm like, okay, how do I figure this out? I gotta understand the problem first, and then I gotta like tease it out, break it down, And I'd rather do that than complain, And it's like, have you ever met like a Debbie Downer who just complains about life, how it's going to crap, and everything is just sucky. Like if it's not the weather, it's the government. It's not the government, it's your landlord. It's not a landlord, it's her coworkers. If it's not her coworkers, then it's her parents. If it's her parents, then it's the gas prices. If it's not gas prices, then it's the dating scene. Like it just keeps going on and on and on and on, drones on and on. And like, how do you feel when you meet someone like that? Like, and to be honest, like I've never been a super optimistic person, like always, right? Like I've been that negative Nelly. I've been that Debbie Downer. And like as that person, it's really hard not to get sucked into the negativity. And it's because it's really easy to blame other people for the problems. It's because of them. They're the ones who's doing stuff. Like I'm this like, blame-free, not at fault. When things go wrong, it's not our fault. No, we are the angels and we do everything right. And it's like, but then when you step out of that negative vortex, or when you see the person who's, inside that negative vortex. Oh my God, burping. You realize why someone likes to complain. Really deep down inside, they're scared to solve the problem. They're scared to take responsibility. They're insecure about their ability to take responsibility, to take control, to really whatever problem they're complaining about. They're scared to create a life that's not the problem. And they're scared, insecure that they have the capacity to live a life that they deserve. And they'd rather like focus on things they can't control as a way to justify their fear, right? Like it's like well, I can't control those things. So therefore, I have a right to complain. And that complaining gives me a sense of control, right? Like being able to control our words and actions. You can either use it in a, productive, effective manner, like to achieve fulfillment, or you can use it in a destructive, toxic manner, which will make you more negative, right? So that control that you have, you can spin it many different ways. And when you start complaining about things you can't control, that's when you start feeding into that cycle. Anyway, so for me, like I've made a conscious decision, and I've figured out what I a way to hone in on what I can and cannot do, and what I'm good at, what I'm not so good at, and what I love doing, so that, I can only control the things I can control. So if I take control over the things I can't control, then I can get the control back. And complaining about things I can't control, that's just not conducive to finding a solution. Number 10, last thing. So last sign that I found that I resonated with for me being intimidating is about that knowledge, right? Like I know what I know, and I'll tell you when I don't know something. You know what I mean? Like that idea that we don't know something can be a huge fear of others. We don't want to be perceived as unknowledgeable, as someone who doesn't know all the answers to the questions, because then you don't want to be perceived as an idiot, right? But for me, it's like, these are the things I do know, and they're close to my heart for a reason. Like self-love, personal development, romantic relationships, telling stories, non-romantic relationships, just relationships in general, family dynamics, parenting culture, self-growth, health and wellness, empathy, emotional intelligence, like food, eating, mindfulness, taking care of our bodies, being in tune with who we are, loving ourselves. These are like near and dear in my heart, and I'm constantly learning about them and self-reflecting on these topics for myself, because I have an unquenchable thirst for knowledge in these areas, in these topics. But like sports, politics, the news, cars, technologies, which iPhone is the best, or home improvement, interior design, like I mean, it's beautiful, but I just don't, gaming, fashion, makeup, comic books, Pokemon cards. What else? It's like I'm always going to be a noob, like a newbie in those areas, and I'm not gonna say I'm an expert in any of those things, because even though I believe in always learning, learning is like I always believe we should be learning about new things, but there are just certain topics that aren't interesting enough for me to become an expert at. So I'm always going to say I'm a noob at sports, like learning about, and not the playing of it, but the watching of it. Like I just don't, like I'd love to like learn how to correctly golf, right? Like not just whack the thing. I'd love to learn like the physical aspect, because then that also helps with my links to my health and wellness piece, right? But the act of watching golf, or the act of watching basketball or soccer or whatever, like I just I don't want to be an expert at watching it. Like I don't even know most of the rules for those games. Poker, like gambling, like I honestly have no idea how to play poker. Not because I'll suck at it, I just don't know. But the thing is, because I love humans and I love learning about other people, like when someone tells me they're really into poker, like I don't want them to tell me the rules and how to, to win at a game, or whatever hands are the best, or like I don't want them to explain those things. I want them to share with me why those things interest them so much. Like why did they become an expert at poker? And what inspired them to get into it, and what is it about the game that makes them so passionate, and how does that game, the game of poker, relate to their day-to-day life? And maybe like that's the things I want to know about. I don't want them to teach me those topics, right? I don't want them to teach me like all the different functions of a car and I don't know, like, I don't even know what the specs are for a car, but just like, why did you get into cars? Why do you love cars so much? Anyway, so that's kind of my top reasons that I found that resonated with me. Like, I'd love to know, have you ever been called intimidating? Have others ever told you that? And when you think of the word intimidation, do you have negative associations or positive associations with that word? And why? Just let me know below.